Welcome back to the Big Club. Welcome back, and today we're going to talk about why the middle class is being deleted. You gotta understand that the middle class is not struggling, right? It is actually in the process of being deleted. I mean, like systematically, on purpose. Because if you look around, your parents used to work one job and still be able to buy a house, raise kids, have a car, go on holidays sometimes and still have money left over, right? But now people have degrees, right? Multiple incomes, side hustles, you name it all, and still live like they're one emergency away from being finished. And the worst part, they'll gaslight you and tell you you need to work harder, you need to budget better, right? They're gonna tell you that you need to stop buying iced coffee, you need to stop going out. Meanwhile, the rent is eating 60% of your salary like it's nothing, right? So in this video, I'm gonna explain the real reason the middle class is disappearing, right? So you need to understand this first. The middle class wasn't just a group of people. The middle class was a buffer. It was a safety layer between the rich at the top and everybody else at the bottom. Why, you may ask yourself? Because if the middle class is strong, society is stable, right? People have hope, right? People believe that the system works, right? They might complain, but they still think, well, if I keep working, I'll get there. There was that light at the end of the tunnel, right? But when the middle class is deleted, now it's only two groups: people who own things and people who rent their lives forever. And that is perfect for control. You see, a society full of exhausted people is easier to manage. They don't rebel, they don't question, they just focus on surviving. Now, wages are frozen, right? But the prices, they are unlocked, right? This is the biggest scam of modern life. While wages move like a snail, but then you look at the prices and they move like a freaking rocket, you know? Even if you get a raise of like 5% a year, but, well, food goes up, right? Bread, cooking oil, right? Meat, milk, fuel, sometimes 10%, 15%, 20%. So your raise isn't a raise, it's actually an insult. It's like your boss saying, here's extra money, but you still lose, eh? You actually still lose. And people will say, well, that's just how inflation works. But inflation has become a weapon because if the cost of living keeps rising faster than your income, then you don't get richer, right? You just get more tired, right? And the middle class was that breathing room. The middle class depends on breathing room. The minute there's no breathing room, you're not middle class anymore. You're just a poor person with nicer shoes, a poor person with nicer cars, right? But you're drowning in credit, you're drowning in debt. So, for the middle class, right, the biggest wealth builder used to be owning a home. But now, homes aren't for living, homes are for investing. So the middle class gets crushed from both sides because if you rent, the rent goes up every year and you're stuck. You can't even plan long term because your landlord can increase, you know, your rent whenever they feel like it. If you try to buy, you get hit with those interest rates, the bond costs, deposit requirements, lawyer fees, transfer costs, everything that involves buying a home. And even when you do get the house, you're paying that thing for 20 to 30 years, like you're in prison, right? So most people aren't buying homes anymore, like the way it used to be. People are still buying homes, but it's at a snail's pace, and even the homes they're buying, it's not like they buying these big houses that, they are dream houses. They buying houses that they can only afford, at that point, right? So most people are just buying a monthly punishment, right? And again, the wildest part, man, your parents used to buy a house with one salary. Now, couples with two incomes still struggle. So ask yourself, how is it that society progresses but housing becomes more impossible? Because it's not for you anymore, right? It's not for you anymore. Now, coupling with the fact that everything you need is now a monthly payment, you know, back then, middle class was work, buy things, own things, right? Now it's work, subscribe, rent your whole existence. Look at your life right now, right? You pay monthly for your phone, for the Wi-Fi or whatever internet you use, the Netflix, the Spotify, the car insurance, the car finance, all of that stuff, maybe iCloud storage, all of that stuff. And this is the scary part, that's not even luxury anymore. That's just modern survival. If you want to be middle class today, you need to pay 15 different companies monthly just to function. And the moment your income slows down, well, you start losing access to everything, right? So your lifestyle is built on monthly permission. So that is not freedom, that is a rented life, right? It's really what it is, And the middle class used to be free enough to move, right? But now that keeps them trapped, right? Because that isn't just money, that is obedience. So if you owe car payments, a bond, credit card debt, store accounts, student loans, then you can't take risks, right? You can't just take a risk. You can't just say, you know what, I'm quitting this job, it's toxic. No, you can't move easily. You can't start over because your life has bills that don't care about your mental health. So you become a loyal worker, right? Not because you love your job, but because you're scared, you know? So middle class people are not lazy, they are overworked, but they stuck because the system doesn't want you owning your time. It wants you leasing your soul and renting your soul away, right? But there's a new thing happening now, whereby people look rich, but they broke. They've got nice cars, nice clothes, expensive phones, eating out, traveling, but the whole lifestyle is financed, right? It is that wealth. And that's the trap because society is now built on looking successful more than being stable. So people chase status and sacrifice peace. That's why you'll see someone with a fresh car, but they can't even handle $100 emergency. I'm telling you. So that's not middle class. That's a poor person with a payment plan. The middle class is supposed to have stability. It's supposed to have savings. It's supposed to have security. It's supposed to have options. How many people now can truly say that they're stable, and they have savings? It's a few, right? But today, people have aesthetics, they have anxiety, they have pressure, all of that stuff, right? So education became a scam, for many people. People were told, go to school, get a degree, you'll be set, right? But degrees are common. Almost everybody has a degree or some type of qualification, but jobs are scarce, right? And experience is required for everything. So you end up with people who did everything right but still stuck. Now I'm not saying education is useless, right? It's important, right, to get educated, because if you don't, then you'll never know anything and you won't be able to make a living for yourself, right? But the lie was that education guarantees success. That was the lie. Because now the rules changed. Not even good jobs, they don't pay like they used to, right? Even if you do say, yeah, I'm getting paid quite well, but things are expensive, you know. A lot of people are not broke because they're stupid. They're broke because the ladder got removed. The ladder to success, it got removed, right? So again, middle class life used to be designed for one income. Well, your dad could be the one working, your mom could be managing the home, kids would be raised properly, family would be stable, but now two incomes is mandatory. If you're single, it's almost impossible. Now, if you're single and you have kids, it's war, right? And that becomes another form of control, because if both parents are constantly working, well, who now raises the kids? TV, you know, the Netflix, what, schools, the internet, trends, celebrities. That's perfect for the system, because kids raised by systems become predictable. They become consumers. They don't become free thinkers, right? And when a society can't afford time, well, you know, their freedom just slips slower and slower, or gradually and gradually away from them, right? But let me just tell you something, man. The rich are getting richer, right? But not by working harder. Some people are rich because they work hard. But the biggest wealth today comes from owning assets, owning companies, owning property, owning attention. While the middle class, which is soon to be deleted, relies on salaries and monthly payments and promotions and bonuses, right? And salary is the weakest way to build wealth because it is capped. You can work harder, but your pay is still limited, unless you're working for those big companies and you're one of the seniors there, then of course you can get rich from your salary. But, if you're just a normal 9 to 5 guy, well, you can work hard, but your pay is still limited, right? So the rich aren't winning because they're smarter, they're winning because they're in a different game. Different rules, different advantages, and the middle class is stuck playing the hard work game while inflation is punching them in the mouth every month. So that's how the middle class is getting deleted, guys. That's why it is getting deleted. Now, when I say that, I don't mean that people are suddenly becoming homeless tomorrow, but I mean that stability is now being removed, right? Ownership is being removed, right? People are turned into permanent renters of life, renters of homes, renters of cars. And once you're stuck paying monthly for everything, you stop being a citizen. You become a customer, right? And customers don't rebel. Customers just complain and keep paying. That's why the middle class must disappear, right? Because a strong middle class creates freedom, right? But a trapped population creates profit. So if you're feeling like, I work hard, but I'm not moving, it's not in your head, man, it's the system. And you're watching the middle class get erased in real time, you know. Anyway, if you like the video, subscribe to the channel, like the video, yeah. This is the Big Club. See you on the next one.